I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Calgill, Graham Noble, and Dave Patterson. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, Smoke from a Distant Fire, Activist Media, It's Bull, Durham. The biggest story of the year is being ignored, and we'll tell you all about it. Impending impeachment, the looming midterms have folks from coast to coast stirring up possible impeachments. We'll give you the latest. We'll tackle the controversial no-knock warrants for our exclusive Member Zone subscribers in the no-knock knockout segment. And we shift gears and discuss the Freedom Truckers movement in our Truck You, Trudeau segment. Finally, we'll play around in our Just for Fun segment, a fan favorite, where you never know what you'll learn. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative 5. Well, folks, it seems Trump was right all along. He was being spied on. Special Counsel John Durham dropped a snippet of his findings on the now infamous Russia-Trump collusion scandal, and boy, was it ever a bombshell. Durham revealed that Clinton's campaign created the conspiracy theory to discredit Trump and alter the outcome of the 2016 election. And this is just the beginning. But have we heard a peep out of the media? Yeah, that would be a no on substance, but a yes in terms of beating up on the conservative media for covering the story. Durham hasn't even finished the investigation, and folks everywhere are asking the tough questions. Did the deep state really conspire to keep the information a secret during the 2020 election? And what all Trump supporters want to know, how many more heads are gonna roll? Talk to us, Graham Noble.
Well, I think, first of all, the catchphrase for 2022 has become, "We told you so." And I'm sure of all people, Mr. Trump is getting tired of either thinking or saying those words. But whether or not there'll be more indictments, I think there's no question about that, really. There's going to be more indictments without a doubt. And I say that because, first of all, there were so many people involved in this scandal. And at the moment, we've had just 3 indictments, and all 3 of those are really on the periphery of this, of the heart of the matter, if you like. And if there are no more indictments, then just from a point of view of optics, the American people are going to wonder what's going on. It will seem like if that's it, if Durham just wrapped it up now or next month or 2 months from now with no more indictments, it's going to be a bit like the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, where the middleman went down, or the middle woman in that case went down, so to speak. And yet none of the people who were at the heart of the matter were ever even touched. And of course, that's the way American politics goes. So I think more indictments are definitely on the cards. Obviously, I would not want to even begin to predict whose heads are going to roll next. And as for the overall scandal here, I think it's fair to say that this is indeed bigger than Watergate. I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think we should downplay what happened at the Watergate Hotel all those years ago. But nevertheless, this is much bigger. And I think if nobody in any kind of, senior positions faces any consequences for this, then, well, what little credibility the political establishment has left in this country is gone forever.
Yeah, well, Jeff, Graham touches on something that I think is really significant, and that is, it does seem like Durham's just been hitting all the small fry.
Yeah, that's my takeaway too. And I do agree with Graham that this is bigger than Watergate. When I first heard about this, I channeled my inner Bernstein. I said, this is bigger than Watergate. They were spying on a sitting president. And on top of that, what was interesting about this is that they weren't necessarily trying to find evidence that Trump was connected to Russia. They were trying to concoct it. They were trying to create a bond between Trump and Russia so that an investigation would ensue.
Well, all right. Let me just interrupt for a minute. So you're saying there really was no break-in, like there was at Watergate. I mean, it was all about the break-in at the Democratic headquarters. There was no there. They created their own break-in, in other words, right?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. Like they were trying to find any information that they can use to create a narrative that Trump had some shady dealings with Russia. And what the stuff that they were trying to use was really, it didn't really signify that Trump had done anything with Russia, but they were using that to create a narrative that would result in, the investigation and to discredit his presidency. I mean, for all their whining about Trump's claims about 2020, they did the exact same thing for years, saying that the election was illegitimate because of Russia. But I agree with Graham. There are going to be heads that roll because of this, but the prime players, they'll be fine.
Sarah, I hear strains of lock her up coming down the campaign trail. You're very politically astute. Do you think Hillary is protected from all the fallout?
Absolutely. She's not going anywhere. I've been involved in administrations that have had scandals that took out sitting elected officials. And, it's always the random middleman that's going to take, fall on his sword for the team. You might see a whole bunch of people we've never even heard of, and they will take the blame so that the kings and the queens can stay afloat. And that's just the way our political system works. It's horrible, it's wrong, but nobody ever pays for what they do if they're at the top of the heap. No one.
Dave, do you think we're making much ado about nothing, or does this make Watergate seem like a quaint little burglary?
Well, I think that Watergate pales in comparison. The only thing that was clear about Watergate was that there was a political element to Watergate that is not present with Durham, a Democrat who's taking this task on. Give you an example. Chuck Colson was convicted of conspiring to obstruct justice, not obstruction of justice, but conspiring to obstruct justice, a charge that was never on the books before and has not seen the light of day since. But Chuck Colson was a Republican, and you had the Democrats with the long knives out to get them.
Yeah, and he went to the POCA where thankfully he met Jesus. But anyway, I digress. Clinton did have a few things to say about it in Germany. And so she's not playing hide and seek, is she, Sarah?
No, no, she knows nobody's going to get her. She knows it. The beauty of it is it also is going to probably deflate her ego internally. And she may just stay put and keep her mouth shut for a while. I mean, I don't see her planning a relaunch to run for president, not after this.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. I mean, this is kind of just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, but on the other hand, they'll figure out a way. I mean, in politics, perception is reality. It's not the other way around. And so in the political games we play, you will find that everybody will come to her defense. They will deflect. They will keep her afloat, but they can't at this point go, oh, maybe she'll run in 2024 and we'll get rid of Biden and Harris. They can't do that now. I think that ship has sailed.
Okay, Jeff, I stepped on you. You get the final word.
Oh, yeah. And I think what was also interesting to me about this, obviously we knew that the media was going to ignore and try to spin it. But Tim Donner wrote an article for Liberty Nation talking about Durham's role in all this. And I didn't want to believe this, but after reading that article, it's hard for me to not believe it. Why did Durham file his report on the day before the Super Bowl on a Saturday, knowing that people weren't going to be paying much attention to it? It kind of lends credibility to the idea that he's part of the swamp as well. And that was very disappointing because I didn't really know that about him. But it's hard for me to ignore that. I think that we should also be paying attention to that as well.
Good point. Well, like it or not, the Durham investigation may put a stop to all this he said, she said, and we'll finally put some meat on the bone. We'll be closely watching this for you folks. Thanks, panel. Well, conservatives and Trump fans are praying for the House and Senate to turn bright red in the midterm elections. Let's face it, the Dems are sinking fast. It's the economy, stupid. It's the pandemic. It's Afghanistan. And a lack of give a damn for national security on our southern border. It's all of that and so much more that has folks dreaming of reclaiming the upper and lower chambers and then filing articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. And it would be so alarming for the Democrats if they had a viable candidate waiting in the wings. But they seem to pick another very unpopular person to slip into the Oval Office, and that is the Democratic Party conundrum. So what are the chances Mr. Biden will face articles of impeachment? Sarah, good idea or terrible tactic?
It's a terrible tactic, but that ship has already sailed. We saw the onslaught against the 45th president, just day after day after day after day, making it the highlight of the American news channels. It was horrifying to watch how one party took advantage of something because they sort of had control after 2018. And I thought it was stupid to impeach Bill Clinton. I mean, I know he committed an offense that was impeachable, but it really just was a drag through the personal mud and a little bit on the embarrassing side internationally for us to be the country that has that guy in office. So I understand how you kind of want to protect that. So going forward, I mean, Graham probably will know this better than I do, but I don't see impeachable offenses just piling up. I see we hate this guy piling up in conservative states and in Trump fans' minds. And they're obvious. They've been inundated with this for so many years. That's all they know. Impeach, 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 impeach. So I think it's a dumb way to go, but I think it's also going to happen. I think it just has to. It has to.
Graham, she's pitched the ball in your direction, so pick it up.
Yeah, well, I actually take completely the opposite view of impeachment. I think impeachment in Joe Biden's case is absolutely justified and necessary. I think, we have to remember that we've really gotten to the point, and maybe it was always like this throughout American history, but we've really gotten to the point now where impeachment really is whatever the majority party in the House of Representatives says it is, impeachable conduct. It can be anything, can be impeachable conduct. I tend to think that impeachment is necessary because Joe Biden has failed to do what, it's the first duty of an American president to uphold, not only to defend and protect the Constitution, but to uphold the US code, i.e. the federal laws. And Mr. Biden has wantonly discarded federal immigration law to such a huge scale that we can't ignore it anymore. And the way I feel about it is that if Joe Biden is not impeached for his failure to uphold federal immigration law, then why should we ever impeach any president again for any reason? I mean, the Republicans, by not impeaching Biden, would be basically saying we recognize the fact that US presidents are in fact above the law and they can do what they like. But, I'd like to add that I think every single president should be impeached for something. Because I think it would make people think very carefully before they run for president, knowing that at some point in their presidency, they're going to get impeached for some reason, and that's not a good thing for any president to go through. So I think impeachment should also, should almost be like a standard thing now.
All right, Jeff, we've got two sides of the coin. Are you for the buy one, get one free impeachment, or do you think it's just silliness? Where do you, put your hand down on this situation?
Yeah, so I'm coming at this from a different angle. I look at impeaching Biden the same way I look at what the Democrats did when they stripped Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar of their committee assignments. And they also, when President Trump was in office, they tried to impeach him twice for the dumbest of reasons. Like, it was clear that he didn't do anything that was worthy of impeachment, but they did it because it was a political ploy. It was a way to discredit him, especially after he was already out of office. We already know what that was about because they wanted to really hype up January 6th. So in this vein, and I actually don't like this, but I do think that it's warranted for Republicans to bring in articles of impeachment, like serious articles of impeachment against Biden when they have control of the lower chamber, because for the same reason why I want them to strip Ilhan Omar and some of the others of their committee assignments as well. The Democrats need to know that if they engage in this behavior, it's going to come back on them. The only chance, and this isn't even a guarantee, But the only chance of getting the Democrats to stop this silliness is if they know that it's going to happen to them once the Republicans take control. But actually, kind of after hearing what Graham just said, maybe every president does need to be impeached. Maybe we do need an impeachment every 4 years or so. That might be a point, because at that point, the whole process will be diluted and so worn down that it won't even matter anymore. And that's kind of where I think we're headed. I don't think it's a good thing, but I mean, it kind of is what it is at this point. This is political theater, and it's going to continue.
Well, Dave, I kind of come in the same perspective where Sarah stands. I mean, I agree with her that it's just gotten to be political theater. It's nonsense. It's a waste of time. Where do you stand on this? And let's talk a little bit about the odds of a red wave.
I think that there will be a change in the Congress and the Senate. But my point of view on this is that it's a waste of precious time to go through an impeachment process. The whole focus of the U.S. will be on this. And in the end, it won't get any more attention in the Senate than did the impeachment attempt with President Trump. There are so many other things that need to be done in terms of committee action to reverse all of this moronic policy that we've had for the last year. And you just don't have that much time to fool around with an impeachment process that won't give you anything more than emotional gratification.
Yeah, well, to impeach or not to impeach, hey, it's politics, folks. Anything goes. Thanks, panel. It's been about a month since Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declared the Freedom Convoy protesters nothing more than a fringe minority filled with racists. They've been called white supremacists, domestic terrorists. The Canadian government has tried to seize money donated to the cause. Frankly, the Prime Minister seems a little terrified of these commoners, and some members of Parliament are getting a bit prickly with him. To make matters worse, the Canadian government is threatening significant financial penalty for anyone supporting the peaceful protest. Overkill much? Well, Breaker 19, we've got ourselves a convoy. Truckers in America are ready to follow suit, planning a Save America cavalcade all the way to the nation's capital in March. Try as they might, the leftist media is attempting to denounce the surge as nothing more than a minority of disgruntled white men. Sheesh, Dave Patterson, where do we go from here? And will they be bringing in the Guard?
Well, I doubt that they'll bring in the Guard, although the Democrats in Washington would love to see that. It's another photo op. But, the point of view there's a problem that they have in the left. And it begs the question, if this is just a minority of disgruntled white guys, how did the protests have the impact that it's had, warranting invoking Canada's emergency powers? This is simply the government largesse gone berserk. These government powers are what you invoke when you have a significant terrorist attack. And I don't think anybody's going to step up and say that the truckers whom we depend upon for our very livelihoods are a terrorist attack. I recommend people look at Andrew Moran's really good piece in the 16 February edition of Liberty Nation. It's a thoughtful description of what's really going on in Canada. And, it was just a matter of time before the U.S. truckers took the White House on for its moronic policies.
Yeah, Jeff, I sort of waffle between laughing and in the unbelief that Canadians are so passionate about liberty, which is great, but they've never really struck me as that way. And what's going on with Trudeau, who seems terrified and is pulling out all the stops. Everybody's now a terrorist in Canada.
I think, and I am very guilty of this, and I've realized this over the past few months, but I don't think we really understand how oppressive Canada's government is, especially when it comes to their COVID regime. If you're going to get Canadians pissed off enough to mobilize like they have, that's an accomplishment, because Canadians are usually, from my experience, when I've met Canadians, they're pretty laid back, just kind of go with the flow, friendly, whatever. To make them this angry, they messed up. And the fact that their first instinct was to label them as white supremacists and whatever, that told me all that I needed to know. That means that to me, when they say, oh, they're white supremacists or whatever, what I hear is what we're doing is wrong. They're right to protest, and this is how we're going to smear them to discredit them. So when they say that, I know that there's probably maybe 4 people who might have had a swastika or a Confederate flag, and then the rest were just people who were just sick of it. So I don't know if this is going to have any impact over the long term, but it does send a message to the rest of the world. I mean, this isn't going to be able to be tenable for much longer.
I mean, Graham, maybe it's just a stereotype, but as Jeff says, I sort of see Canadians and the Australians and the New Zealanders sort of a laid back group. And all of them have been under such a heavy hand of oppression during this COVID thing. I'm not really sure how that connects.
It is actually surprising that, well, I think Canada is, I would say the Canadians are kind of slightly different than Australians and New Zealanders. I've spent a lot of time around Australians and New Zealanders, and I have to say that they, even though, they're kind of laid back people, but at the same time, they do have a kind of a fierce, I wouldn't say necessarily a libertarian streak, but they do have a fierce streak of, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to live how I want to live. And it has amazed me more than Canada. I'm not surprised at what's happened. I'm not surprised that the Canadian government has behaved the way it has during this pandemic. I'm very surprised that the Australian government came down with such a heavy hand. That I did not expect. But I would say one thing about, and to me, Justin Trudeau has lost his mind completely. I mean, he's just lashing out in such a childish manner that it's, Canadians should almost be just embarrassed that he's their prime minister. But I would say one thing, because I know here at Liberty Nation, we don't like to indulge in comparisons to Nazis and all of that kind of stuff. And it's never appropriate, I think, in this day and age in the Western world to make such comparisons. And I'm not going to, but I'm going to mention one thing about the few people who may have been waving swastika flags at events like this. I sometimes think it doesn't occur to people that the reason why those people maybe are waving swastika flags is not because they are themselves Nazis, but they are making the point. They are actually making the connection. I think that goes over people's heads. But I think sometimes when these people are waving swastika flags, they're doing it to say our government is behaving like Nazis. Whether or not it's justified to say that, that's the point they're making, I think.
Sarah, is it just me, or does Trudeau seem like a guy who needs a good spanking?
He needs much more than that. I mean, he's acting like a petulant child that has never been told he can't do what he wants to do. And for the first time that I've witnessed, Canadians are going, hey, no, we're going to protest. We're going to tell you what we want to do. They're inspiring other people to do so. And we have a convoy coming across the United States headed towards DC. They're going to be in our area here in the middle of nowhere. Probably March 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, and everybody's raising money, and people are just getting on board. It's a heck of a movement, and I think you got to give credit to those hosers up north who have done this. They're brave, man. They're going, go ahead, seize my income, go ahead. I ain't moving my truck, and it's you can't. The visual optics of this, you cannot tell people anymore that it's a bunch of fringe extremists. It's just regular people that are tired. They're tired of putting up with this stuff.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm a little troubled by all this. Everybody's a terrorist if you don't agree with them. The parents are terrorists because they want to have their say at a school board meeting. Now the truckers are terrorists. I'm not exactly sure why, but I just find this very troubling when people, all this talk of domestic terrorism.
Well, it makes sense that you're not sure why the truckers are being called terrorists, because not even the people who are calling them terrorists actually think they're terrorists. They don't know why either. I mean, it's just another word that they're throwing around because they think it'll elicit enough emotions to justify whatever they're doing. And they are trying to justify doing a lot of bad stuff. I mean, we haven't even talked about the media yet. Canadian state-sponsored media is actually listing off the names of people who are donating to the Freedom Convoy. If it's over $40, they list it. And when I found out about that, because Andrew told me, I said, wow, even our media hasn't gone that bad yet. Then a couple days later, I found out that a popular Washington newspaper is doing the exact same thing here in the United States. And that's why, I mean, you know what Trump said about the corporate media. And when I talk about the activist media, that this is proof positive that they are not our friends.
Yeah, and they are more and more activists. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised at the normally easygoing Canadians creating a dust up for liberty. What seems painfully obvious is that Prime Minister Trudeau has never been told no, and he's having a hell of a time handling it. Thanks so much, panel. On today's episode, we're playing political worst case scenarios. Remember, audience, this is all in fun, which is why we call it Just for Fun. I'll call out our panel individually and ask them to choose a number from a list of 5 options that I have in my possession. Of course, they've been sealed to avoid any appearance or suggestion of rigging the game. All right, ladies first. Sarah, pick a number.
In honor of Andrew Moran, who's not here with us right now and can't do his silly comedy act.
All right, but wait, let's not get people worried. He's not sick.
No, he's not dead. He's not sick. He's just busy. I'm going to pick his favorite number of 3.
Number 3. Chris Cuomo applies for a job at Liberty Nation. Oi! What is the first question you ask him?
If he knows how to find the door to go out.
The virtual door to Liberty Nation. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you got that instead of me.
Yeah, my question to him would be, are you serious?
He is probably looking around.
I'm going to ask him if he knows how to conjugate a verb. The guy is not really that bright, but I didn't mean that. This is all just for fun, just saying.
Just fun. We're having fun.
Just saying. Okay, Graham, 1, 2, 4, and 5 are left.
2, please.
2 for Mr. Noble. A presidential campaign has tapped you to manage their media, but you have to relocate. What city do you pick? San Francisco, Chicago, or New York? Oh, I can't believe you got this.
Whoa, that's like the worst question for Graham.
Good grief. Yeah.
They all have no-knock warrants. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I try to never leave the Deep South anymore if I can possibly help it. But no, I'd have to say, and to be honest, this is quite serious, actually, is that my choice out of those 3 would be Chicago. And obviously, I abhor the politics in all of those cities. I suppose I should choose San Francisco just for the climate because it's more suited to me.
I was going to say, why are you going to choose? You're going to.
But I couldn't bear. I just couldn't bear San Francisco. It doesn't matter. I would rather freeze my butt off than live in San Francisco. So I will go up to Chicago. Thank you very much. I do actually I've been to that city several times, and it does have its good points. I kind of like Chicago. So yeah, I'd have to pick Chicago.
I mean, that's just like a hunting trip for Graham, isn't it?
Going to Chicago.
That's a Chicago deep dish pizza. I mean, that alone would be.
Well, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. All right, Dave, you're next.
Okay, I want what's behind door
number
5.
5. Okay. Justin Trudeau bangs on your front door. No knock warrant. He is asking you to hide him from the wife-beating, Confederate flag-waving, old white supremacists, angry white men of a certain age. What do you say to the Prime Minister?
I would say, come on in. Prime Minister Trudeau, but just wait a second while I put this sign on my door that says Justin Trudeau is inside.
Trudeau is here. Trudeau is here. Well, I wasn't going to say that it's sort of describing you. You're certainly not wife beating. You're certainly not, I don't know if you're Confederate flag rating, but I guess you go into the senior white category. So
be careful. Be very careful here.
He's more likely to knock on Sarah's door, right, Sarah? He's got a thing for pretty gals.
Yeah, I don't think he'd knock on my door because he'd probably see the turrets on top of the school.
All right. And now we're saving, I guess, the best for last. Jeff, you got 1 or 5?
1.
1.
He's back.
Jeff's back. He always picks number 1. CNN has been bought out by the Murdoch brothers. CNN. Wow. Okay. Well, I know that shocked me.
It was a cheap price.
Yeah.
A low bidder war. They want you to join the team of conservative voices that includes Mitt Romney, Bill Kristol, and Liz Cheney. Do you jump at the money or indignantly decline? Jeff.
Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat. I mean, could you imagine how fun it would be for me to rip them to shreds every week? That would be incredible. Like, I would do that for free. But I mean, don't take that to heart, CNN. I'm just saying, I would love that.
You're going to take the money and run, right? You're going to go on there.
Yeah, I'm going to rip them to shreds, and I'm going to take the money, and I'm going to have a blast doing it.
Oh gosh!
Except for nobody watches CNN.
On the wall behind you, on the studio wall behind you, you have a big, rhinoceros head mounted on a plaque.
Exactly. Yes. I will be taking trophies.
Okay, last but not least, I'm going to go. Hillary Clinton has agreed with number 4. Number 4. Hillary Clinton has agreed to sit down with you and talk about the Durham report. What is the first question you ask? Well, in the words of, I believe it was John Dean, what did you know and when did you know it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, it could be a whole lot more funny. But maybe I could ask her, does she like the color orange? Does she think it works well with her complexion? All right, I'm trying to be funny. Nobody.
Ask her what brand of hot sauce she has in her purse.
No. Yeah. You ask which way you want the stripes on your uniform, horizontal or vertical?
Oh.
She'd go vertical. She needs the weight slimming stripes up and down.
Well, but let's face it, it is kind of a pantsuit in the Poco.
Mm-hmm.
And she does like the early 70s pantsuit look. So anyway, well, now you know the Liberty Nation plan to take the road less traveled and somehow survive. And we hope we never have to make any of these decisions for real. Anyway, folks, we hope you played along, and remember to share your political survival tips with us in the comment sections on Facebook or YouTube. Thanks for joining us, and pop on over to libertynation.com for a little bit of sanity analysis and the very best in political humor. Don't forget to check out our daily memes to keep a smile on your face. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, or on the mall. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our member zone, just $17.76 for the entire year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank DiOrio, and our executive producer, Sarah Calgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.